From a bargain charity shop find into a beautiful shallow tank aquascape, and here's how I did it. First we're going to start off by adding aquarium substrate to the bottom of this glass bowl. I'm using all of the substrate to create a great base layer for all of the plants to survive and live healthily and happily in this bowl. I have a very small aquatic pump which will pump up some water up the wood to make it more of a water feature. I'm hiding this behind the piece of wood so you can't see the pump in question. Although this pump isn't within the final scape of this tank, it does give you a good idea in what I'm trying to achieve. I'm cutting the tubing to size so that I know the water will trickle out where I desire. I'm gluing this tubing down in place so I know it won't move. The first plant I'm going to use for this build is a Alina. I'm taking this plant out of its rock wall and dividing it up into little sections. This will make it easier to glue the plants onto the wooden structure and provide myself with more plants. This plant is known to grow onto objects rather than growing in the substrate. With my tweezers and aquatic glue, I'm gluing the Alina down on the wooden structure in various places so you can see it from the front of the scape. I'm hoping this plant will eventually cling onto the wood structure, grow and spread along. This plant can also grow semi-aquatic, so it can grow outside water too. Once I'm happy with the positioning of the Alina, I'm moving on to some moss. This is your standard Java moss, and I'm using this just to fill in some gaps around the wood and the Alina. The Java moss will eventually cling onto the wood and spread and grow itself too. I think using the moss makes this structure look a little bit more natural, and that has been out in the wild for some time. This part is also finicky. As you can see, I'm getting a lot of moss stuck to my fingers right now. Once happy with this, I fill up the glass bowl with a bit of water just to the top of the substrate surface, so it makes easier planting in my next plant into the substrate. The next plant we're going to plant is this Alternanthera reneki. I think this plant is absolutely beautiful, and in the right light it can go very pink. These plants are surprisingly a lot easier to look after than most, despite their colour. This plant has been grown in tissue culture, and it has this weird watery residue left which I need to wash off. I'm also pulling this plant apart so I have more plants and it's easier to plant. Giving this a quick wash in a little bowl of water, I can then plant this straight into the substrate. Doing this one by one does take some time, but it means I can have great accuracy in where the plants grow. Using all of these plants have filled up the glass very quickly, meaning I don't have to wait for the plant to spread and grow naturally on its own to fill up the glass itself. Since I'm happy with this planting, I can now fill up the rest of this bowl. I don't want to fill this bowl right to the top as I want some of the plants to be semi-aquatic and be in and out of water at the same time. I can now move this scape under a grow light onto my shelf. This is where I find out the pump doesn't actually work to what I want, and I'm going to have to rethink about this. I changed the pump into something just that little bit bigger and led the pipe towards the top, so it then trickled down over the bottom bit of wood. I then added salvia to the top of the tank to help balance out nutrients. To finish off this scape, I added a little bit more cushion moss and Java moss into the cracks and crevices of the wood structure. This made the whole thing come together and to make it look as natural as possible. And that's how I created a shallow glass aquascape from a charity shop bargain.